Okie doke. So I'm a little distracted today. As you can see, this is not my setup, and so I do apologize about the quality of the video. I tweaked some things to try to make it better, but as always, God is testing if I really want to be a YouTuber or not. So of course, all the lights in my living room went out except for one struggling bulb that is flickering right now. So I don't have the lighting to actually be able to do my videos. So I was like, okay, I this has been on my mind. It's gonna get made, but I know that the quality is suffering a little bit, and for that I do apologize. But I think this topic is really important, especially after the events of this past election. And I think that it's a conversation that we need to have. Um, so let's talk about it. We are going to talk about we are not our ancestors and what it means when we say that. So I saw a clip from a show called The Gilded Age today, and it centered on a Black woman who is, from what I gathered, she's a journalist. She was published, and her piece did really, really well. And so they called her into the office, and they wanted to, I think, offer her like a deal or some money or something for her piece. And one of the comments said, I love seeing depictions of Black people in the past that don't, I guess, center on slavery. That was the long and short of it. And they were like, we were full human beings. We weren't just like servant. What did they say? They were like, we were humans. We're not just in servitude roles, and we did all these other. And I do understand where that sentiment comes from, and so I want to approach that sentiment with empathy and understanding. But I think what bothers me about the conversation that a lot of Black people have when it comes to poo pooing depictions of slavery or slave narratives, or even kind of just making these comments about not being our ancestors and being more than just this and just more than just that. And, oh, we did other things. We weren't just slaves. We weren't just in these subservient roles. We were also doing X, Y, and Z. Is that I feel like we neglect to see the I think we neglect to see the value in the lives that our enslaved ancestors led. And I understand that I think some of it comes from a place of shame, being associated with being enslaved, because history is written by the victors, right? And what we've always been taught is that the victors are the enslavers, the captors, not the enslaved, not the captives, not the ones who were slaughtered, not the ones who were erased from history. It's the victors. And so I think there's a sense of like shame that we are not, you know what I'm saying? I think there's a sense of shame there. But I want to reframe the idea that, enslaved Black people were more than just slaves, and like, oh, because when a lot of the times when people make that claim, what they're saying is that, oh, we were things other than slaves. We But what we in that when we make those statements, what we forget is that those slaves were fully realized human beings as well, and they had a full range of experiences, and they tried to live the fullest lives that they could under the circumstances that they did. And when we talk about slavery and we discuss the narratives of slavery, so much emphasis I think is placed on them escaping or them rebelling or trying to get out of slavery or being held captive or being taken back into slavery. But we don't really talk about what the day-to-day lives of these people may have looked like. We don't really go into the fact that slaves would often try to make leisure time, carve out time for fun, and the things that they would do in that time. The fact that, they would congregate and they would play instruments and they would dance and they would sing and they would celebrate just having the opportunity to be together, have community, take time for themselves that didn't have anything to do with what they could do for their enslavers, for what they could do for that had nothing to do with labor. The fact that they were they had an incredible amount of ingenuity. During slavery, enslaved people would braid their hair into patterns to basically make maps in their braid designs and in their hair designs so that they could figure out how to navigate whenever they wanted to escape. They used their hairstyles in order to create maps to escape. That's why it's not just hair for us. And that's for any of these folks who've stuck around this long. It's not just hair for us. It is culture, it is freedom, it is expression, etc. Not only would they use their hair as a mode of assisting their transportation, assisting their escape, they also used it to store food. They would store grains of rice and other dry goods and things in their braids because when you're on the run and you need food in a pinch, well, there you go. That takes an incredible amount of creativity and ingenious to be able to do that. There were lookouts on the plantation. The lookouts would be on the lookout for the overseers. And so the slaves would take their time to, just rest and sit down for a second, just give themselves a break. And the lookout would call out or give a signal or something so that the slaves would know to, get back to work before the overseers got there. This is, this incredible sense of empathy and community and just, you know what I'm saying? Like, the fact that slaves, because they weren't allowed to be taught the Bible in a certain way, they had to be taught the Bible in a certain way. So they would gather in their own makeshift churches. Usually, these would just be gatherings out in a clearing in the woods or away from the plantation, and they would hold their own kinds of services, and they would learn about the Bible and learn about whatever religious teaching they wanted to, away from the plantation in the way that they wanted to. They also found a way to communicate through their own language called Tutnese. Tutnese is a language, kind of, it's almost like Pig Latin, and it consists of stringing words together in such a way that you're actually spelling the word out within the word. This is how they would learn how to read, how to write, and they use this to communicate to one another. Again, just this level of ingenious. The fact that they were, you know what I'm saying, taking the time in between back-breaking endless labor to do these things. Their children would play games, they would play with each other, parents would play with their kids. Oftentimes, slaves who might be loaned out to other plantations might make friends or lovers on those other plantations. So when they went to these other plantations on loan, or left for the week, every not all slave drivers were just like wardens. Like, every so, not to say they were good. Let's don't don't misunderstand, but there are narratives about masters that would allow their slaves to go to other plantations sometimes, and they might go and visit lovers, they would go and visit friends, they might go and visit other family members. What I'm saying to you, what I'm trying to get across in talking about this, is not that these slave masters were such better people than we think, and they were so benevolent, and they were so, no, they were fucking monsters. They were monsters. Absolutely monsters. But in that, enslaved people made time for merriment, made time for joy, made time for leisure, made time for rest, tried to, you know what I'm saying, tried to connect and have family, community, love. You know what I'm saying? They would go to other plantations to see their loved ones, to see their family members, to do what they could. Oh God, I had so much that I wanted to say. I had so much I wanted to say when I was in the car, and I was thinking about this, and I know, y'all, I don't do scripts. I used to, but I don't have a teleprompter, and I have no way of, like, when I write things down, I have no way of seeing it because I don't everything is done on my phone. I film on my phone, I write on my phone. So I don't do scripts. So if things come off rambly, or if they don't seem connected or disjointed or whatever, that's why. But there was so much that I knew in my heart that I needed to say. And what I want to get across in all of this is that enslaved people were people. And I think that because as Black folks, we don't get to see, Black Americans in particular, we don't really get to see the full breadth of our history depicted by folks who have our best interest at heart. There is absolutely a vested interest in making sure that Black folks and that people beyond Black folks view us and view ourselves in a certain light. And so our image is heavily curated, and we are inundated with slave narratives that focus so much on brutality, dehumanization, humiliation, and pain. But I think that I feel like I understand that we as Black American folks, we are tired of seeing that. We're tired of that. We don't want any more slavery. We want to hear about the Harlem Renaissance, right? Reconstruction era, the 70s, the 80s, all these things around these other time periods that we feel like are so much better, or were so much easier, or were so much greater, or so much nicer, or, you know, humanize us so much more than the era of slavery. We want to hear about all of those, all of those time frames, all of those time periods. And I think that is because we view enslaved people through the lens of their enslavement, and we forget the fact that they were people. So in between the hard labor, in between the suffering, the pain, the strife, they still would go to, I believe it's Congo Square in New Orleans, and would dance and play the music of their homelands on the drums, and reenact the dances that their their ancestors, that their people would do back in Africa. That they would, like I said, play games. So many things, so many dances, so many things have survived because our enslaved ancestors curated culture. They didn't History didn't just happen to them. They made history. The hand games we play, you know what I'm saying? The patty cake and all that, that's from them. Dapping each other up, that's from them. They used to do that. Double Dutch. Strolling, the AKA, head whip, that's from them. The music that we make, that's from them. The way that we sing, the way that we find rhythm and tap out beats, that's from them. The food we cook, that's from them. The way we commune, that's from them. Family reunions. Family reunions were integral to enslaved people and previously enslaved people who had been freed, finding their family members. They put out advertisements to find their family members, and they would gather and commune for family reunions in celebration of being reunited with their family members. That's from them. So many of the things we do to this day, hundreds of years later, that's from them. And as far as saying we're not our ancestors when it comes to protest, yes, the fuck we are. Yes, the fuck we are. You think they weren't protesting? Every fucking day. Them living was protest. They weren't supposed to make it that far. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So, what enslaved folks would do was that they would break equipment. They would hide shit. Like, they would hide equipment. They would break equipment. They would poison animals. They would let the animals loose to delay labor. What is protest but the disruption of the norm, the disruption of our cycles, particularly as it pertains to capitalism, the disruption of this capitalistic cycle. Because if you're hurting people's pockets, you're hitting these beasts, these savages, these savages. You're hitting them where the only place that it hurts, because you damn sure ain't gonna appeal to their humanity. What humanity? So you know what I'm saying? They would destroy property, they would destroy tools, they would oh, I'm tired. I'm so sick. Oh, I'm so sick. I'm sick. I can't go. I can't work today. I can't. That was protest. That was protest. Disrupting the ability for these people to make money. We do that today. We call out for no fucking reason. We take off for no reason. We take the time off. Why? Because goddamn, we deserve it. We deserve it. Fuck capitalism. Fuck this job. Like, fuck our bosses. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's them. Everything from sabotaging tools and equipment and the animals and delaying work to huge things such as organizing slave revolts, entire revolts that shook the masters. Okay, baby, they were shooketh. Them white devils were shooketh. Okay, okay, okay. Right. Shook. Okay. To this day, they're so shook by the idea of us protesting in the street that BLM protesters and young black folks who were the front lines of protest have been stalked, have been mysteriously unalived. Their efforts have been thwarted. They no longer allow us to wear masks. They criminalize protesting through a bunch of little nonsensical bullshit laws. So a huge gathering of people can't wear masks. Now, when we know that there is a dangerous virus that we just got under control, and you're not going to allow a group of people, any big group of people is a damn petri dish, but you're not going to allow them to wear masks. Why do you think that is? It's because protest is dangerous. But see, they got that from their ancestors how to shut down our ancestors' efforts. And we got our efforts on how to protest from enslaved people. I say all that to say, I understand that there is a level of shame, I think, when it comes to slavery, because the underlying messaging of these slave narratives, which depict black bodies in various states of torture and harm, is to disempower us, to make us feel weak, to make us feel like we've always been weak and we will always be at the whim of someone stronger, more powerful, better, etc. However, I have chosen, and I hope that I'm encouraging you to choose to look at it differently, to reframe it. My apologies on my phone. My phone is dying. But what I was trying to say is that I have chosen to reframe my beliefs about slavery and my ancestors who were enslaved people. And this actually is because of an ex-friend of mine. He knows who he is. He'll probably see this video. Hey, there's not an invitation to talk to me. I don't want to talk to you. But if you see, that's so shady. But if he sees this video, he knows who he is. And he actually was the one who encouraged me to kind of reframe slavery, and to look at my ancestors who were enslaved people through a more nuanced light. What were their day-to-day lives? What did they do outside of just being enslaved? I never thought about that until he challenged me to do so, and then I started writing a book about it. I haven't finished the book. Don't know, I want to finish the book, but haven't finished it. But I started thinking, I started researching, like, what did slaves do in their day to day lives? And as I looked into it, I was like, yeah, these were just people. These were just people who were being held captive, but under the most inhumane of circumstances, had the most human experiences: love, loss, grief, and yes, as fleeting and brief as they were, periods of joy, periods of triumph, periods of happiness, periods of pride. I know that we get tired of seeing um, our history as being brutalized beasts of burden, but I challenge you and encourage you to look at us and look at those people as people and think about, outside of the torture, outside of the pain, outside of the enslavement, think about the fact that they had full lives and that they tried to live those lives to the fullest that they could given the circumstances. And because they did, you are here and you get to live a much bigger life than they ever could. I think about, like, all the time how I am like the dream come true of my ancestors. How they would have never thought that any of this could be possible. And it makes me so giddy because I'm like, look, mama, we made it. We made it. And we're going to keep going. And I think there is just something so beautiful and so encouraging about that. So when y'all say we are not our ancestors, you might not be, but I am.